Good morning or good evening, depending upon where you are, and welcome to another episode of the Cryptowriter Round Table Live. We have an all-star cast. We're going to talk about Eden. But actually, to start, I'm going to do something I don't normally do, and I want to tell a little bit of a story, and I think it kind of solidified in my mind how great Eden can be and what it can do for the community in general. So there is this really interesting Finny coin that's a guy that we know in the community has. And they do a bunch of different kind of Finny types of things. And this one happens to be a celebrity Finny of one of the people on the stream today. And this is a Dan Larimer special celebrity Finny. It's very rare. It's one of 10. It was released on the Wax blockchain. There's a few other ones that went out as well. And you'll see here, this Finny is actually owned by Charlie Q. Now, Charlie Q's been watching our streams. He's been watching the Roundtable streams. He's been watching the Uplift streams. And he's been crazy critical about like anyone who says anything bad about EOS. Now, nobody really knows who Charlie Q is, except for the fact that whenever you say something bad about EOS or Dan, he gets really angry. And because he's Dan's #1 fan, self-professed Dan's #1 fan. We've only ever seen one picture of Charlie Q. He was standing on top of a police car holding up a sign that was Volume 1 Finny launch until Eden. He actually came in, got himself inducted, previously refused to show up on camera, do any streams, took the video, and participated in the first election that we had last week. And I think that's like really cool. The second part is he actually ended up in the same group as Kenny, Cryptowriter Kenny, who is another one of his favorite people who never goes on stream. And both of them ended up in this same group to participate in this groundbreaking Eden on EOS election proper. And I think that's just amazing that you have these two people who would never, ever, ever put themselves out there in public, but they believe in the mission of Eden on EOS so much that they wanted to give their pitch and try to help the community, with getting funding for the projects and the things that they believe in. So I just think that that's really telling to me how much people want to participate. They're actually willing to change their normal persona to do that. So for me, I think that's just amazing. Welcome to an all-star cast. We have Zack Gall from the EOS Foundation, I guess. We have Dan Larimer, who probably doesn't need an introduction, architect of EOS, author, which basically turned into Eden on EOS and a proper governance structure. We have Brandon Lovejoy, podcaster, and been in the EOS game for a really long time. And we have Chris Barnes, who, basically won the first trial election. Chris and Brandon were actually two of the finalists in the last Eden election. And Corey and me, your hosts, Corey and Jimmy D. So how are you guys? Hey, welcome, and what do you got for us?
Just real quick, Dan, really good to meet you. I'm going to try not to fanboy out too much. But I'm talking to M Blue. I just told him I'm on a live with you, and he asked me to tell you hi and to tell everyone like you're the reason that he's in this ecosystem. And so just like for me personally, thanks for getting M Blue into this ecosystem because that profoundly changed my life. So thanks for that. And we'll do some gratitudes here in a bit. But yeah, anyway, hi from M Blue.
All right, thank you.
So what did you guys think? Like I took part. I know you guys did. I just have to say it blew me away. But like, those Clarion guys, like they freaking deserve a planet. Like they're awesome. The way that they put that together, in my opinion, the way that it all operated, like what did you guys think about the whole experience in comparison to other ones previous?
I thought it was awesome. It was much cleaner. The breakout rooms not having to do manual Zoom, certainly that was better, no doubt. The voting not using Telegram or a Google spreadsheet, way better. Still some refinement and workflow that people need to Like, you got to get into the Zoom room quick at the beginning. You only have 40 minutes. So if there's any kind of issues at the beginning, you cut into that 40-minute window, which is super important when you're trying to express your ideas and your pitch, and then debate. So I know in the second room for myself, we didn't come to consensus whatsoever during the 40 minutes. And it was only in that final 10 minutes after the original 40-minute call that we started a second Zoom, and really quickly, down literally the wire. Anchor protocol by Aaron Cox and the Matt's team is obviously awesome, because had there been any hiccups, I wouldn't have been here. So I'm very grateful for that, certainly. Yeah, that's my take on it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it went really smoothly, and
Zach,
both the
your
rooms.
audio's dead.
My audio's dead.
No, yours is good. But Zach was, I was trying to lip read Zach, but I couldn't hear him.
I think it was mine. Do you hear me now?
Okay. We can hear you.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
I had the button blinking. I didn't know if the blinking meant mute or the blinking meant live. I just wanted to say that, Chris, I was watching round 2 and I saw the ticker coming down, and I didn't know what was going on, because there was you were in the group, Ray was in your group, and I just looking at, I wasn't sure how there was not consensus, and I think it had to do with Ray. His connection was spotty or something, so he was having trouble voting. But it wasn't because of the software; it was admittedly because of his connection. But I was really happy to see you make it along and not have your group not reach a consensus. I don't think any of the groups in round 2, none of them failed to reach a consensus, and most of them actually had a unanimous consensus, which was great.
Yeah.
The entire process was incredibly educational for me. It's great to see so many passionate people, so many leaders from the community participate in this system, and to have the experience and the reviews and feedback we've gotten have been incredible. We're still in our growing pains. The book came out in January. Eden on EOS was conceived in March, and here we are 6 months later with the first on-chain election with integration with Zoom. A lot of the constraints, like the 40-minute time period, was actually driven by Zoom. Like, I would have preferred an hour or more, because Zoom only has 40 minutes for free calls for people who set up the room. In the future, we're going to expand that time and request that the people who set up the room have a paid Zoom account, which only the person who creates the meeting room needs the paid Zoom account in order for it to go longer than 40 minutes. But we didn't want to burden the community with extra costs or paying for a third-party service. But in spite of all of that, we had a successful outcome in my mind, where we had 6 passionate, presumably trustworthy people who are doing cool projects in the community, and then the randomness kicked in, and I could not imagine somebody who's more deserving than Aaron, as someone who's been with EOS since before EOS existed. He's been since Steam days. He has built the wallet that made it all possible and has been faithful through the hard times. So he's clearly someone who has the best interest of the EOS community at heart. I cannot be more pleased with the outcome. It couldn't have been, Satoshi couldn't have granted a better candidate in the end. But any of the candidates in the top 6, I think, were worthy candidates and would have done great. And even though not everyone went to the topmost spot like Aaron did, all top 6 projects got funding. And as the Eden block producer starts funding more EOS into the system, as we start demonstrating our capabilities as a community, that funding is only going to increase. And so in future elections, I would expect that the top 6, or there might be top 7 or 8, if we have more Eden members, we'll all have sizable funding. I'm also really excited that people that are lower level are pooling their resources and using other sources to amplify the projects that they can fund. It really shows how everyone came together, used this process, and I guess we haven't done a formal poll, but I think the approval rating of the outcome is going to be quite high. And perhaps one of the most surprising things for me was that I didn't make it past the first round. I thought for sure that people thought that I would be the best representative of the group since I built the thing, but people decided to go with Omni. I voted with them. So we learned a lot in the process as well. In some of the things, we had a registration process, and we had pretty good turnout. Like 70% or so of the people that registered actually showed up and voted. But the way things are structured, that meant a lot of people had rooms that had 4 or I think maybe even 3 people in some rooms, which forced unanimous consent in the smaller rooms, or left less room for negotiation. So I think we'd like to find ways of improving turnout, which is the number of people who show up when they say they're going to show up, and then that could be a huge boost for future elections.
I'd love to put some gratitudes up if we can, Corey, and yeah, I just want to shout this out too. We're actually going to give away a couple of those cool Finny coins. So if you put your hashtag, if you put your EOS ADDY in the comments, hashtag EOS, and then after that your EOS address, then we'll do a little bit of a draw later. And I encourage all of the people who are on the stream to also put your address in there. I'm going to put mine in just because I think it's fair. And I would love to see, some of these stream members. Just because you're on the stream doesn't mean you deserve to get paid. But that's cool. And then I kind of wanted to ask Zack too, like, you said you were watching these back. And I think the nice thing about being able to watch these back is to be able to see what various people's pitches were, right? And like, even for the people who didn't win, you can see like what people were pitching. And like, I'm just kind of curious, like, is that something that you think is good for the ecosystem as a whole? It seems to me like to be pretty positive way to look for a path forward, in my opinion. But I don't know what you and maybe other people think as well.
In my opinion, the Eden Elections is not the place to pitch a particular project. I think projects should be pitched separately, and anyone who wants to do something should have a hour or 2-hour presentation and lots of written documentation, and then post it in a community area. This is the project that I'm working on. People like Anchor or the Bees or Violet Garden, all those are projects out there that people need to read up and study on. And when you're in a pitch, when you're in one of these groups, you should say, hey, we've all seen the various pitches out there. These are the ones I support. We don't need to go over the pitch. What you need to be doing in the groups is getting to know the other people, finding out what matters to them. It should be more about sharing values and figuring out which person in the group has the time, motivation, and integrity to faithfully represent those values higher up in the system, so that when you get a budget, you can go fund it, right? And you might be able to support multiple projects. You say, yeah, I support the Bees, and I support Violet Garden, and I support Anchor. I think those are the 3 biggest things. I'm not saying that person, but example, I do support all those projects. But the example is that, you can kind of poll the room and say, well, which of the projects that are out there are you most interested in? Which ones do you agree on? Maybe we can debate about the relative value of it, and then pick a representative who can best articulate the principles and philosophy of the group instead of the specific implementation details. If you focus more on why instead of how and what, and get consensus on why we're doing things and the general direction, then you can represent that better up the group. You don't need to pick the person who says, if I'm elected, I'm going to use the money to fund my project. and screw all the other projects. That's not a winning strategy. So I kind of view this whole Eden election process as a learning experience for the entire community, in much the same way that the TV show Survivor changed over the years. Relatively the same rules, but people played it differently as they realized how the game operates. I think consensus builders like Chris Barnes are playing the game in a more intentional way. There are other people as well that are kind of like trying to see what people are doing, but people that will actually represent the people in the room, that's who you should be voting for, not people that have necessarily the best project. People that can be trusted to get the money to the right projects and to hold those projects accountable for what it is that they said that they would do. Those are the people.
I didn't want to go through the first round, and I thought a little bit bad after because I was really harsh on the person that we actually ended up pushing through. But I said, like, kind of, we need something concrete, something that builds a foundation for the ecosystem rather than just funding for marketing. That was kind of the pitch. And that person said, yeah, okay, I understand. Like, potentially we could, use this to divvy out to other projects and give it that way. So I kind of agree with you. Does anyone else want to take thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Dan's right, and Aaron brought it up in the Eden members channel yesterday about how, and there was a lot of people who campaigned on this. Brandon, you were one of them, who's basically campaigning on, I'm a trusted member of the community. I am going to hold these projects accountable, and you didn't really campaign on yourself. You campaigned on your own reputation, saying you guys can trust me to contribute to the projects that matter. And this is the first and last Eden election that will happen prior to Pomelo launching. I think once Pomelo launches, we're going to see a lot of, especially in the lowest tier where they're getting maybe 120 EOS. The best way to put that EOS to work is going to be in Pomelo. And over time, over multiple elections, we're going to start seeing a proof of work, essentially, of all of these potential delegates, where you're going to see all of their past contributions from their Eden account to Pomelo. You're going to see their past contributions to other Eden members, and you'll have this history on top of the pitch to kind of as almost like a visual. If there was an easy way to view that or filter that on either Pomelo or the Eden portal, it's kind of like your reputation on a page that shows what you're contributing to. And the goal of Pomelo, it seems to be to reach eventual feature parity with Gitcoin. It's modeled after Gitcoin. And on Gitcoin, they have a feature called collections, which any influencer, or in this case, an Eden representative, they could build their own collection. Because the way Pomelo works, it's very similar to Gitcoin, where it's almost like a shopping cart experience, where every proposal or grant you're supporting, you're just adding it to your shopping cart. So these collections are essentially just a pre-filled shopping cart with multiple proposals in them. So I could see a delegate putting their collection together in advance of the Eden election, and then coming to the election and saying, this has been public for a while. I've been talking about it in social media. You don't even if I don't get voted in as a delegate, there's other people hopefully in the EOS community that are contributing to my collection. It's almost like a proxy. Think of it like a block producer proxy. You're trusting this person because you don't have, or this entity, because most people don't have the time to do due diligence on everything. 30 block producers are a lot. And I envision Pomelo to eventually have hundreds of proposals that are all, there's going to be dozens of quality ones out of those hundreds. So that's how I envision it, is kind of like these collections on Pomelo, and it might be manual at first, but someone will go into the elections just campaigning on, I'm going to support this group of projects. You could trust me. I've been around the community this long. This is my background. Hopefully you already know me in advance. And I think that's the way we'll see it forward. It won't, I was happy to see Aaron win. I think he was great. And like Dan said, he built the EOS mainnet, wouldn't have really launched without him. The EOS voter wallet was the very first EOS wallet. It was before Scatter even was out. Like the very first votes were either done through Kleos or through the EOS voter wallet. So it's nice to come full circle, and I'm happy that he's able to support his own initiatives. But I do think in the future, it will be more or less people like Chris Barnes who are holding everyone to account. They have a reputation, and they're more of like a project manager and almost like an accountability type of person. Like Chris, you mentioned almost being like an auditor essentially as part of your campaign.
Yeah, exactly. That word seems so, I like the idea of like transparency, community builder, right? But it is an auditor. Yeah, like I'm going to attempt to hold recipients of community funds to account. And I have a chance to now do that. I've been given a mandate to do just that. That was my proposal. And so that hopefully has some legs, because like you say, Zach, when Pomelo comes, I think that it's such an interesting, like this past 5 months since the launch of Eden, everything that EOS has gone through, and then now Pomelo coming, the first official election, like and the EOS Network Foundation, like all these things are really, like some momentum's building. And I think it's really exciting to think of where we go from here. And like you say, Zach, right, the next Eden election will have Pomelo there, and yeah, people are going to run on. And a lot of questions have come up. Where's the accountability with these particular pitches, and like how do these pitches even work? Like some good points in the members chat yesterday that these pitches need to be maybe presented more like a traditional pitch if you were looking to build a power plant that I've been involved with. And there's like the EPCs, the engineering procurement construction companies, have a really formal, diligent milestone pitch cost. Like we didn't really see that, but maybe Pomelo's the answer to that question, where that is going to be the go-to. Anybody with a project, you're not going to win in Eden unless you have a Pomelo pitch that describes in advance, so people could look at it, what you're going to be doing. So yeah, it's great synergies that'll come out of that for sure.
I would go a step further and say that the projects that do the best are the ones that say, I've already done X, Y, and Z. I'm going to continue doing it. If you compensate me by, giving me some funding for the work I've already done, you can basically see the work first, community pays you second. And that kind of attitude. A lot of people say, well, you've already done the work, why should we pay you, right? That I think that turns the incentives are wrong. And as a community, it's easier to compensate people who've already invested in doing what they think's best for the community. And if the community agrees that they've done good work, awarding them. And that's why people like Aaron and the Bees and others, Violet Garden, the people who've already been doing things got to the top. Someone who's never done anything and isn't doing anything with their own money, with other sources, is going to have a harder time getting to the top because they're an unknown entity and they haven't taken any risk with the community. So why should the community take any risk with them? I built Eden with my own money, and then the community through the EOS Foundation compensated for the majority of the cost to build it so far. But that's me taking a risk, saying I'm going to do this work, see how the election comes off, and if you guys are satisfied with the results, then I get paid. Otherwise, I don't. And then it's up to the community to have the integrity to follow through and compensate the people who are doing work for the community's benefit without any guarantees that the community is actually going to come recognize it. But the more we can recognize people that do contribute, the more people will voluntarily contribute on their own and invest up front. And since their own money's on the line, they'll do a better job than if they get the money first. And then we have to kind of say, well, what did you promise? And it gets really ugly versus, hey, we already like what you did and you've earned it. Here you go. And then there's no hard feelings about the money.
That sets an amazing precedent, right? Like it sends a message to the entire community. If you're in there and grinding and building things, there's a really good shot you're just going to get amplified, which is really amazing. That's a lot of fun.
That's the advantage of the current EOS community. So over the last year, 2 years, we've seen this kind of slow bleed as things stagnated, leading up to this crescendo that we've seen over the last couple of months with rapid movement that is kind of unprecedented in EOS. Is everyone who's still here, everyone on this call, and pretty much everyone that made it to round 2 even in the Eden election, they all have this body of work behind them, and that will be advantageous. That's not to say a new member of the community couldn't come in and catch up and build their reputation, but there is a clear advantage for everyone who's here today. because the longer your reputation, the more work you put in prior to posting a proposal on Pomelo, prior to running in an Eden election, all of that body of work behind you and that reputation you bring in there with you makes it so much easier, because then you don't have to spend any time on your pitch explaining who you are and why people should trust you. They just trust you because you've been here the whole time. You're not a stranger. No one in the Eden election that made it past the first round was a stranger. I knew every single one of them. And I think that's the value of everyone that's here today. And that's what's going to form the core of the EOS community. That's going to make it a place that people from externally, people outside of the EOS community, are going to want to come in and join. And I couldn't be happier with the leadership that we saw in the Eden election. And Corey, you asked earlier, I didn't get a chance to answer about watching the videos back. I jokingly called this Eden election, with the plans of going back and watching the videos, EOS speed dating, because it is the fastest and most efficient way to get an idea of who all of these people are. I know most people by their Telegram handles, and whenever I meet them in person or see them on video, it's always like, whoa, that's what you look like and sound like. But yeah, so going back through the Eden election, everyone on there are the people who want to add value to EOS. I want to know who those people are, even if they didn't make it to the final table or they didn't make it as the Satoshi. Everyone who made it past round one probably has some kind of value to add. And by going through the videos, you're able, like I said, EOS speed dating. And I think moving forward, that's what these elections will be, is getting a bird's eye view of who wants to go to work, who wants to make EOS great, who wants to make Eden great. And it's the most efficient way to get to know a lot of people, just like speed dating.
Yeah, I think the time constraints are actually important. It forces people to focus on what matters most. If, let's say, we extended each round to everyone's got 4 hours to try to persuade everyone, you're going to put everyone to sleep, and you're not actually going to focus on the things that matters. And then it's even more difficult to audit the election, like you're doing. Like, oh, what do these people actually talk about? And it causes people to put more details into the election process instead of outside the election, where they kind of build their reputation. But I think that this whole process has really allowed you to see the community and it's provided a lot of value for other projects. If you take Violet Garden, for example, they're doing a UBI token for Eden. I think there's other people as well, but we're getting to the point where there's more value to being an Eden member than the membership fees. If you just look at it from the perspective, if the UBI coming from Violet Garden is greater than the $50 or 10 EOS membership fee, 10 EOS allows you to collect 50 VIO tokens every single day. There's a lot of incentive to become a member. And when you build reputation and you get known, and you say, hey, yeah, I'm an Eden member, that means you're in good standing with the community, right? It's one of the best things you could have is saying being an Eden member is better than the blue check mark on Twitter, right? It means you're a real person who is following some basic community guidelines with integrity. And with those, as we grow the community and we create more and more incentive to be part of Eden, we are creating a ton of value for EOS and the broader cryptocurrency community. One thing I do think I'd like to see more of in the future is remembering that you're representing Eden on EOS, which is this community. You're not representing all of EOS. Now, there's EOS is funding us, and there's incentive for Eden on EOS community to do good things for EOS. But if we don't represent ourselves well, both internally to the EOS community and externally outside of EOS, by having people like plans on marketing Eden on EOS, not just EOS, plans on growing membership of Eden on EOS, not just accounts for EOS, then this whole project that we're working on can start to stagnate. So an example of this would be the Eden on EOS website. Right now, my team and Ray have been putting this together, but it's clearly out of date. It doesn't even have this latest election stuff on there. So there's things that we need to do to make sure that Eden on EOS is all buttoned up and there's people that are taking care of the business, the organizational business of Eden on EOS, so that it can continue to function smoothly and we can have these elections so that we can get the funds necessary to actually do good things for EOS and for the other projects that support us, right? The Eden community has huge incentive to support Violet Garden because they're giving an airdrop to Eden members every single day. So there's lots of incentive for, as an Eden member, to support these projects, EOS and other things, because doing so supports the community and makes the community stronger. But we can't just take for granted that there's this organization that exists and take all of our resources and send them outside of Eden on EOS. We need to direct a percentage of the resources internal to the continued enhancement of Eden on EOS and our own marketing and communication, appointing representatives of Eden on EOS, and remembering that you're representing Eden on EOS, and which then Eden on EOS is representing EOS, right? Is that chain there? You're not representing EOS because all of EOS didn't elect you, just the Eden on EOS members. And that's a nuanced idea that I think the more we can associate our identities with, hey, we've got this community, we need to support this community, because we don't support this community and people stop showing up to elections, we stop inviting people, because we had our election, we got our money, why do we need to invite people anymore? Or our marketing of Eden on EOS that never gets clearer, then we won't be able to have the success we want. So I do encourage everyone to recognize that it's about Eden on EOS as a community first, and then the projects this community can support second.
It's funny when Zach mentioned speed dating, because I went into the election just to support people without the intention of going through. But I found myself before, we got the groups, getting really excited about who was going to be in my group, who was I going to get to talk to, what proposals were I going to get to hear, what people were I going to get to support. It was almost like a cultural hall experience where you meet up once a week and you go and you get to see your buddies and talk to them about what they're doing. So I think that's really cool. Actually, that brings us to gratitudes, because that's actually my gratitude for today. If we can maybe do those, I'm grateful personally. I'm grateful for EOS superstars, because there's so many of them in this ecosystem that are building, doing amazing things, contributing day in and day out. Even sometimes they fail. They come back with something better, 9 times out of 10 with something stronger, with something more efficient. And it's just amazing to see how this community has developed overall. So definitely I'm grateful for, EOS superstars.
Don't let me forget, Jimmy, I want to get an Eden OS billboard up here that we just leave up there forever.
Yeah, we should.
Because I've been having so many freaking ideas about, it's just, and we've been ranting about Eden OS since we first started learning about it. Chris Barnes helped us out quite a bit. Just coming to understand it a lot better. But it's real change the world shit, man. Jimmy, can you tell me that again, please?
Yeah, I'm grateful for EOS superstars.
And I'll just go around how I can see people. Chris Barnes.
I was on your show first on May 18th, and my gratitude then was hope, because Dan's book, More Equal Animals, gave me hope about maybe there's something that can be done in this world to fix the greater problems that weren't really even to do with EOS. And so I am grateful for continued hope, because this is working. And there was a high school math teacher that came on the open mic last Monday who wants to teach EOS content, and going back to Dan's discussions with Satoshi Nakamoto about how Bitcoin couldn't scale, he wants to do a whole class, 12 to 13 lessons in his high school math class, and eventually get to Eden. And he's even considering he might talk to his social studies students or teachers about doing an Eden style election to select the student body council and president in their high school.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
that's exciting. Lovejoy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with everyone who shows up just because back to what Dan is talking about, just people showing up and doing the work and putting themselves out there. So you see a need, you see something that needs to get done, just it's like pick up a shovel, go to work, start getting things done. Those people are the ones that are gonna rise up in this community, and I'm grateful for everybody that showed up for the last election and just put themselves out there. It's like the first step is just being there. And if you ever practice yoga, you know that 90% of the trouble is just getting to your mat. Just get to the mat. Just get to the practice.
I love it. So Dan, I don't know if you have heard about it or know what we're doing here. Every time we do one of these shows, we have all the guests write down a gratitude, and so all these gratitude monuments are actually full. And this, of course, is a persistent thing that exists in the uplift. I've been seeing about when we should launch on EOS, but I think it's inevitable that we will launch a little world that's connected to all this on EOS with EOS-based NFTs at some point. But anyway, if you could just tell us one thing that you're grateful for this morning, and I'll put it up on the monument.
I'm super grateful for the entire Eden community and everyone who participated in the election. You're making history.
I'm going to do two. All right. Back.
Man, I'm just thankful for the entire EOS community that's here with us today at this moment in time. Thankful. This is going to be hard to write all that, but thankful for everyone who ran in the Eden election, all of the projects. We're rolling out these recognition grants. Everyone and all the future Pomelo proposals in the first rounds of grants. Everyone working together in parallel is the only way we're going to get to our end goal. We're behind right now. We allowed stagnation to let other ecosystems, other communities, other technologies kind of catch up a little bit. We're still very much in this race. We're going to scale ourselves in parallel and all move EOS forward together. And this is kind of the first time that's been able to happen. And I think we're going to see an accelerated growth in our community, an accelerated growth in excitement, and an accelerated growth of just community empowerment. Anyone who wants to work and add value to EOS now has multiple ways of doing so. Essentially, EOS has always been, I'm going really long. I don't know what you're going to do on this.
We're not going to write any of this shit down, but I like where you're headed.
EOS has always been a DAO. Just the very nature of it. It's 21 custodians who are elected on an ongoing basis from over 1 billion tokens to elect the guardians or custodians of the DAO. Each EOS account is a DAO. Now this DAO is essentially turning into a business. And anyone who runs in an Eden election, anyone who writes a proposal to Pomelo, anyone who gets sponsored for a working group from the foundation to contribute, everyone is essentially becoming an employee of EOS. If you think about it that way, like a contractor to EOS. And that's really exciting to me, is looking at EOS in that sense, where we are all kind of part of the same DAO. We're all working for the same business, and EOS is that thing that brings us all together. And I'm just super excited to be able to work with all of you guys after spending so much time in the community, getting to know all of you. And I cannot wait until we could have an in-person event, guys. I've been talking to everyone about this that I keep in touch with. As soon as we're able to, we'll be planning something big. I can't wait.
I'm there.
Yeah, you guys are my buds.
That sounds awesome. I'm really grateful for Zach's gratitude rant, and I threw that up on there in case anyone, in the future wants to go Google that, they can find this. And Dan, honestly, I'm really excited to meet you. And I have to say again, I'm really grateful that you got Blue into this ecosystem, because legitimately he changed my life. Like I was just a musician making absolutely no money during the pandemic. We did an NFT release together. He helped me launch the Uplift World. He's helping me launch Blue DAC. Like everything changed. And apparently that's all your fault. So thanks.
Have any of you guys ever met Blue in person? I have not.
Oh, only Corey. We weren't sure he was real. We thought maybe he was just an angel, but yeah, only Corey actually.
So much positive energy in that man.
Yeah, for real.
Funny, because like when I first found out about Blue was a long time ago, and he was this like kind of strange, weird guy who would just sit in his car and rant about EOS and how Dan Larimer was going to change the world. And like if you go back and you watch some of his early videos, it was like before, it was before any of this launched. And then we started working on Uplift Nation, which was this whole charity thing, and then like it kind of exponentiated into everything that it is now. But it's just amazing, like. Yeah, I don't know. He's definitely been following you from very early days before EOS was just a thing, and I can agree with Corey. He's just capitalized upon, I think, in the best of ways, how to bring about change and positivity in the environment, especially in some of the darkest times. So that's like one of the reasons I personally love him. But yeah, I think like Zach said, he just brings a lot of positive energy all the time, and it's just great.
I'm just getting some gratitudes up from the comments here.
I want to, when you're done, let's give away a Finny coin. We'll toss it out there. We've got 3 things to give away actually, but we'll do one now and then we'll do a couple more later. We've actually got 2 coins to burn and 1 special Finny to give away. So if you haven't put your hashtag EOS account name in the comments, please do it now, and then we'll do this quick draw. I guess. But yeah. So Brandon, like you've been a little bit quiet. Like, what did you feel about this whole process? I know you've participated in some of the trial elections. Like, did you have any insights on how much it changed, or how different it was, or anything to do with your expectations that were better or worse even?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it all kind of happened really fast, and I was working like leading up to it quite a lot, and my biggest takeaway was that the UI and the Clarion team just did such a remarkable job with the whole interface and the integration and the Zoom app integration. The fact that there wasn't some moment where in the middle of the election we all had to stop and for like 30 minutes while somebody tried to patch something and fix something was amazing. I mean, evidence of nothing happening was evidence that so much work had been done. It just went so smoothly. And I've talked to several people that also participated in the election and didn't advance beyond the first round. And most of them were pretty stunned, I think, just by how awesome it was. And I think, a lot of comments like, this is a really cool way to do an election. And I think it got people really fired up. People that didn't even advance were really, really stoked by this whole process. So yeah, I don't know. My takeaway was just amazing success, and mad props to the Clarion team for making it look easy,
Yeah, I agree. And one of my favorite parts about it was, like I said, like when everyone took off and went for the round 2, it was like an event in itself. Just the people hanging out. Dan was talking. The Clarion team was fielding some questions about the development, and like all the people who weren't participating in the second round just hung out. Kind of in that Zoom call in real time, and I just thought that was a really fun way to do it as well. So I kind of share your.
It's like a EOS sporting event. It's kind of like the Super Bowl of EA or Eden.
Right. Yeah. It was. Yeah. I just really enjoyed Dan, because I think he talked a little bit about like the process that they went through to create everything and like why it mattered, and that was just really information that I never would have got anywhere else. Right. And so just that real live vibe was super cool.
It was great to see so many people in that live chat room, even people who were not necessarily participating in the election because they forgot to register or whatnot. They could still be there and be part of the energy. There's a good opportunity to discuss an AMA with me and other community leaders about things that were going on, to explain the election process and the new things that were going on in the community. In the future, I think it would be fantastic to have a live in-person event for the election.
Right. Everyone can log in on their phones and see the speaker in real time and like use the mobile technology to do it. That would be pretty sweet, actually. Yeah.
It might actually, for parity's sake, not be the best to try to do it in person because everyone on the hotel Wi-Fi might be a really bad experience. But nevertheless, I think there's opportunity to do in-person events and community building exercises. And there's going to be many different Edens, right? This is just the Genesis Eden, where we prove the concept, we learn the lessons, we refine the bylaws, so that next generation Eden communities can spring up to serve various niches. Whether it's all EOS-based Edens, I could see an Eden for every single cryptocurrency project out there. Every cryptocurrency needs an Eden-like community to reach consensus and select leaders. If they're not using Eden, they're using some legacy process based on token holding, which is going to be Pareto distributed, which is going to lead to the exact same type of centralization. It might be okay now when you trust the leaders of all these projects, but if everyone becomes dependent upon them after they become successful, if they don't have a strong consensus on a governance process that protects the independence of the members, the users of their technology, then the end result will be it's basically a trap. It's like everyone gets on Facebook, we all empower Facebook, and then Zuckerberg comes and starts censoring and telling us what we're allowed to think and what we're allowed to discuss. So it's a trap when you join a community that doesn't have good governance at the foundation. And EOS is, started off with delegated proof of stake, which is wealth Pareto distributed, oligarch tendencies, but fortunately we have the token holders in EOS are supporting Eden and the migration to a more decentralized governance process, which will then build trust. And building trust, it attracts capital. Think about the nations that have the freest markets and the most fair justice system, where you don't need to lock your doors because everyone can be trusted. Those are the communities and countries that thrive, right? Hong Kong used to be that way before China started taking it over. The United States used to be that way. There's fewer and fewer places, but the places that thrive are the ones that support freedom, the ones that govern with integrity. The places that fail are the ones that govern with corruption and lack integrity. And so the only thing we have to do to grow as a community is to increase the level of integrity that we're offering for ourselves. Now, one of the ways that came to mind after this Eden election process and so forth is the most secure way to store your crypto tokens is on an Eden account. Not that we don't necessarily have the technology to do that right now, but an account controlled by an Eden member. Your Eden identity is socially verified. Everyone knows who you are. There's video. In theory, you could lose your keys, and the Eden governance process can be used to restore your account to you. In theory, no Eden member is going to steal from any other Eden member, because if they transfer it to themselves, then, hey, we got the guilty party right here on camera. And there's a way of resolving that dispute. So you can allow instantaneous transfers between Eden members and then put a 1 or 2 day time delay to transfers outside of the community, during which the community can say, hey, wait a second, someone stole my keys. Can we put a hold on that, review it as a community, and get it resolved? But that means there's value for being inside the circle of trust in the community, because you can have more efficient, faster transactions. You can be more secure in your funding, in your tokens, whether it's just EOS tokens. It could be tokens of any other coin that exists on the EOS network, can be managed by the governance process of Eden. So all these things create an environment where cryptocurrency and applications can thrive, whereas other blockchains, people are struggling with the known pitfalls of token-weighted voting. Even when you use quadratic voting like Pomelo, at Steem it was all quadratic voting at first, and then even with that, the whales voted to take the majority of the funds for selfish purposes. But with Eden, we're building trust, and trust is a valuable commodity, perhaps the most valuable commodity. All these other blockchains have it backwards. They're trying to build trustless systems. Well, trustless systems are just systems where if someone finds a loophole, you're screwed. Someone gets your keys, too bad. Trust-based systems are much more robust. They're much more organic and in harmony with nature. And by building these systems of trust and accountability, we can create tremendous value for everyone involved, as the Eden community can build things like insurance that you can't build on other blockchains in a decentralized way. So there's so much potential, and this is just the very, very early days in the beginning. I think we have an MVP, we've proven proof of concept, and I think it's only going up from here.
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum DeFi comes to mind, right? Where you can front run other people's transactions. It's not necessarily the most noble of things. But I've talked to Corey and the people at Cryptowriter, and like if I were running, I think I told you this last time we met on the last stream that we did. Like if I were running, I would want to, try to find like a more simplified version that could plug into a DAO that we could use in one of our worlds, or that could plug into an NFT project that could, direct what moves and turns would take, right? Like you wouldn't necessarily need a 40 or 50-minute meeting for everyone to sit down and decide these decisions, right? But there's going to be various degrees and various levels of that. So it's time for me to ask. I'm going to ask a personal question here, Dan. It's going to be a weird one, but I do that from time to time. So let's just see how this goes over. Now, if I were to put a bowl of ice cream in front of you with 3 different kinds of ice cream, are you the type of person that would eat the kind of ice cream that you like first, or are you the type of person that would eat the kind of ice cream that you like last?
I would probably sample each of them to figure out which one I like the best. And then I'd probably mix it up based so that the one I like the most doesn't melt. And then, I don't know.
All right.
Have to feel it out in the moment.
Yeah.
There you go. He's studying the problem. This is very scientific.
Right? Yeah.
Make a plan when you get more data. I mean, that just makes sense.
I should have probably precursored that with something else. But here goes anyway. We're gonna burn a coin, and we're gonna give 1 coin away. If you win the coin, if you win the coin, you don't get to play the game the next time. We're going to burn another coin. We're going to give that coin away. And if you win that coin, you don't get to give away to play the game the next time. And the third thing that we're going to give away is a very special Daniel Larimer Finny. So essentially, you want to come in 3rd place. That's your goal and ambition for this round. Because, yeah, I don't think Dan's going to melt. He's already burned. So let's do this draw. I've never done this before, but it should be quite interesting. Anyone who has hashtag EOS in their account should come up, including the people who put it in on the panel. Let's see what happens. Trading Nomad, you are the proud winner of, let's see, we want to burn this coin. Oh, snap. Well, that didn't work.
That's way better when you narrate it. I'm not gonna lie. It's
right.
significantly better.
I'm not really sure what happened there. It's not supposed to be like that. I mean, I'm not gonna Yeah. Let's try that again. Let's go here. All right. This is an atomic hub problem that happens frequently. But yeah, all right. So we'll go here. We go to burn. Third time's the charm. If it doesn't work this time, I'm just going to send you the coin. Maybe I'll try to build a new one. Is that atomic hub calling? Because tell them they need to fix their interface. Just in case.
Better call Jonah and Fabiana. Something's going on here. It's either
Right?
internet or the atomic hub.
Right. I think they're trying to jinx EOS here. They're trying to make us go for the. Let's try this one. Maybe it's a jinx coin. All right. Okay. There we go. I understand, and I want to burn this NFT. Okay, let's do it.
Yep. Oh, hey.
Da-da-da.
All right, and now we refresh and see what happens.
I called the senior center, and they said we have no garage sales coming up.
And we got a pretty cool crypto finny here. That's all right. It's gold. It's got a green T-shirt, some beige shorts. I mean, that's good. Yeah, let's do one more. So Trading Nomad, we'll send that off. We'll do another one a little bit later in the show. But yeah, and do any of you guys have anything you want to that you want to add? Trading Nomad, if you're here, one more time, drop your EOS account in the comments so that we know that we're giving it to a real person and not a bot. Drop it in there now, and yeah, we'll do another one in a little bit.
I wanted to say one thing about Dan's excellent set of comments about just Eden and where it can go. And so this was a comment that was in the Eden members chat today, and it was a gentleman. He said, I just came back from a meeting. It was a 75-person circle in a gymnasium. We went through the circle talking about how this shitty situation, so COVID, is affecting each of us. When it was my turn, I finished telling them I was a newly elected delegate for a cryptocurrency network with a budget to help organizations in my community. He ran on onboarding in his community, starting a local food bank program. By the end of it, everyone was interested in forming a digital community. I am dead serious about this. Next week, there will be over 100 people there, and I will explain Eden to them. That's what this
Chris, can you send that to me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Because remember, the most important thing about Eden isn't the technology. It's the process. It's the principles that are outlined in my book. Right? In my book, which I have all around me,
Speaking of which, Dan,
I outline
where can I order that right now? I know I can get it. We can get it for free, and you can, I think, listen to it. There's a bunch of different places, but I just want to buy 10 copies. Like,
if you go to moreequalanimals.com, second post on there will link you straight to the Book Baby store where you can buy it. But in my book, I outline how if you have a community in real life of 50 to 100 people, a deck or two of playing cards and a couple tables, and you can randomly group everyone by the suit that they're handed. They can reach consensus right there. You can do the entire election with zero technology. And because everyone sees each other in person, you don't need to have the onboarding process and all the other videos, and you can maintain your privacy to just those people, those groups. So it works really, really well for established organizations that want to have a community-driven, democratic-based process for selecting leaders and making decisions. Every single church out there, homeowners associations, they can all use this process. And the more people that use this process, the more people that are familiar with it, the more legitimacy it has, and the more they understand the principles. Once you understand the principles behind the process, it means you also understand how corrupt the current processes that we use to elect leaders in our so-called democracies, right? And the democracy is a name only that we're all living under. We all know that those systems don't represent us. Particularly when the president is cheering people losing their jobs. That kind of thing is not representative. There's inherent corruption, and we all know it. We're all just trying to figure out what can we do about it. And this process is a way of reaching consensus without the vote fraud, selecting leaders without having to have media to campaign. And it's a very powerful process that facilitates consensus building. And so if you go to your schools, right, get the school to do student elections with this process, right? You might find that it's not a popularity contest anymore, because it really can't be a popularity contest if schools do this, right? And do studies that compare and contrast it. Do one election with this process and one election the old-fashioned way, and just, the more studies we get, the more real-world examples we have of the Eden process, the more equal animals process in decision making. The more we win, because then people say, "Oh, I'm familiar with that here. I know how it works." They come here, they trust the system, and that's what it's all about. And once the majority of the population knows that this is a better process for reaching consensus, then maybe all of society can adopt better principles for representing the people compared to what's gone before.
That's my hope as well. And that was Chuck, I believe, Chuck McDonald, who shared that. And he was in my group. So technically I'm representing him, and I should probably help out with that in some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
You'll get to Lovejoy, because the working group that you've volunteered to participate in, working around, so with this high school teacher, his math teacher, we're starting a working group now to help him curate part of his curriculum to teach blockchain, dance, history, EOSIO, Eden, and then also create. Dan's book is amazing, but it's a book, so so we do every Friday at 1300 UTC. We've been doing a live YouTube stream with Lovejoy, myself, and a couple others, going through Dan's book and trying to tease out the really, really important bits so we can condense it and create maybe, if possible, like a 5-page summary. Nuance will be lost, absolutely, but at least it gives us an opportunity to sort of get the ideas that are really important into heads in an easier way. So the working group, part of it is to also work on this distillation to present to a high school to do your student body president election, and then we can use that same process then to come up with this work. And Chuck is in that working group too, Lovejoy. So we'll get a chance in that working group to then also facilitate what Chuck is trying to do. And Dan, if you have any opportunity, I don't know if you have time and you want to participate, I think some input from you would be absolutely incredible to have your voice there as well.
All right. Thank you. I'd like to address the question that's posted on here about the smallest number of people that the non-tech system works on. If you've got a group of 10 people, you can talk to everyone and do a direct vote and select someone, right? You don't need to go into 2 groups of 5 and randomly pick to do someone, right? But there comes a point where it's not actually practical for everyone to talk to everyone. And I think that point occurs probably around 25. Once you have 25 people, you break into 5 groups of 5, and then you've got a final group of 5, and you can either reach consensus again there, or you can do random sortition. I think the random sortition at the top doesn't work until you get to maybe 100 plus people like we have now in Eden, just because you haven't integrated enough people into that, right? If you have 5 people that pick someone and then you're randomly picking, that's not aggregated enough. So you need to have a larger group before you use sortition at the top to select. But I'd say around 25 people. So a classroom, you can use that to pick a class leader, and then all the classes in a school can then appoint it. You can actually use democracies of democracies that way. If you got 25 classrooms in a school, each class picks a representative, and so forth. And now you've reached consensus using the fractal democracy of democracy approaches that Eden has, where each class is sort of like a micro county in a broader system. You don't necessarily have to randomly distribute across the entire school. So I think 25 is a good way of doing it, and I would use 2/3 consensus for groups less than 100 for selecting the leader, and I would use sortition for groups larger than 100, and I would not go more than 10,000 members in any group that's being randomized. I would switch to multiple groups at that point, and then have Edens of Edens to reach consensus from there. But if you have a natural grouping of people, say churches, each church can host an election, and then all the churches in your area can get together to reach consensus. That's a organic way of measuring people. The only problem with the church approach is the churches all have to be equal in size, and then people can kind of like, well, I'm going to play political parties by switching which organization they go to try to influence the outcome at the end. But I think there's enough other binding things, location and friends and family, that people are not going to really be gaming the lines that attempt to manipulate the outcome. But
I mean, good luck with that. We can barely get churches to agree on the same God, never mind the same size of people, right?
Well,
Sorry,
I'm saying
but I know what you're saying, and I think it's really interesting. I wanna ask a follow-up question on this, because how does that change, right? So now, kind of going back to what Zack was saying, you have this kind of family that we've built in EOS, where all of these people who are building and working on projects are going in there and they're doing things. So my question is, like, how would this process in real life differ from the processes that already happen, where just a class president is nominated? Is there, what's the benefit of using this Eden system, actually?
In real life, a class president, people put nominations in, and then they campaign through the entire school, and then everyone knows the popular kid and no one knows the unpopular shy kid. The head cheerleader and football quarterback end up winning, and it's just a giant popularity contest, and there's no real representation going on. So I think you'd see vastly different outcomes, because if the quarterback randomly gets assigned to a group of people that really don't like football, he's probably not going to advance, even if everyone knows him, right? Whoever can appeal most to that group will advance. And so you get very different outcomes, and I think you'd identify better leaders through the process in the school than you would under the current process, but yeah, I've got a phone call I've got to take. This is taking, we're 10 minutes over the time. So it was really great talking to you all.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to hang around here and spin the wheel 3 more times. Anyone else who wants to hang around and see that happen, that's great. But if you guys have to disappear, we completely understand. But it was just really good to have this conversation. I'm super, super stoked about seeing everything that comes out. Actually, I want to do another one with, Chris and Brandon, and like maybe a month down the road or something, we can do one with the people who were in that final group and come together and talk about, what you guys have been doing with the funding and what projects you've been supporting. I think that would be really interesting. And yeah, I think if you guys are down for it, we should definitely do another one at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'd be great. These are great. And it's just good to talk about this stuff, and it gives us an opportunity to get these ideas into people's heads. That's, I think, one of the big overarching goals here, is just to get this idea into people's heads. And if they never even heard of EOS, they've heard of democracy, and that might draw them to EOS. So it's an all-around win-win.
And another one I'm biting my nails for as well. I'm gonna have to wait, because Zack, he's a tough bargainer. But I'm biting my nails for when we get more information on what's happening with the foundation and like all of these other funding arms that are coming out of EOS. So of course, we've got Pomelo, but we've also got EOS Starter, and we've got the foundation. We've got all of these people now for the first time, and it's crazy because we've been here for a couple of years. We've got all of these people for the first time that are like going to potentially get like funds that are going to, multiply their development speed, multiply what's happening in the ecosystem, multiply the reach that like they have, and the ability to promote like beyond our little closed borders. And so I'm super excited to do one of those when you're ready, Zack. I won't twist your arm too much. Yeah.
It's just an exciting time. So we've been communicating pretty well. We put out everything in text right now. A lot of that, to be honest, is things are very fluid. So, I mean, when things are spoken publicly, we're loose on a live stream right here. So it's like you say one thing, and then if you pivot in any way, then you can't just focus on the end goal. You have people asking why you pivot, and it's just a distraction. So it's really just staying focused on what the end goals are. And the end, there's a lot of end goals, but what's happening now is everything working in parallel. Like I said, the foundation has our goals, top-down approach, but it's going to be a process. So in parallel, we have Eden, we have Pomelo, and I just couldn't be more excited because for years we've all been here. Every one of you are pretty much, I'm pretty sure, Genesis holders on this call, right? So there's always just been these unmet needs of the network where you see it in Telegram. Someone should do this. The block producer should do that. Someone. Well, now anyone could be that someone. There's funding. If you have the skill set, if you have the accountability to deliver, then do it. There's the time for talk and hoping someone else does something is done. Like anyone can step up to the plate and do this. And we saw the first example with Eden, because anyone could have came in there. I mean, it was mostly people who brought their reputations, but there were people just who didn't really have a chance to be empowered up until recently. And then Pomelo will see the same thing. And then over time, we'll have a framework in place with the foundation where we'll be able to kind of directly help out newer initiatives. But that's the reason that the direct grants so far have only been recognition, because these projects have 3 years of a job interview behind them. They didn't need to be interviewed, really. It was for previous work. Like Dan said, Dan explained his vision for the approach for Eden is do the work and then get incentivized after the work's complete. That's kind of what's going on with the recognition grants. And the second wave will be announced tomorrow, and then every 2 weeks across 8 weeks. So drip, 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 just constant good news. And then when the timing is right, we ramp things up externally, because there's never been, EOS has always lacked an entity that could coordinate messaging using resources to make sure that like the top tier medias are paying attention. And we're going to have all of these wins behind us. We're going to have all of these initial Eden winners several weeks or several months into their campaigns. We're going to have the first probably round of Pomelo projects that are being funded. Even if the funding hasn't been received yet, you'll see all the donations and contributions on Pomelo. There will be so much, by the time externally we're ready to make a lot of noise, there's going to be so much goodness behind us. And it's going to change the narrative of EOS, because traditionally there was nobody championing EOS outside of EOS. We've lived in this echo chamber, and there's nobody that's been fighting for it, especially in the medias and cryptocurrencies. It's very much pay to play in a way. There's just so many different businesses and companies and the media entities themselves that they're businesses. So you kind of need some help to get a foot in the door, like PR agencies, for example, that specialize in this thing. Nobody was available in EOS to foot the bill for certain items that resources needed to be pulled for. You couldn't get all of the block producers to agree and say, hey, let's all just pitch in $1,000 or $2,000 a month, so we have this big pot, and then we could direct it towards something we all need, we know we need, but none of us could afford it on our own. And then who controls that pool? Then it's another just argument and debate and just not getting things done. We've spent a lot of time talking about things in EOS, and a lot of it was because we didn't have the power to do anything. We spent 3 years discussing what needs to be done, where are the gaps, things that other entities may have been relied upon to do things that we don't have to rely upon anymore. So this is the first time, like, we've all been students of the game, so to speak, for years. Like, the laundry list of things that need to be done are identified. like everyone knows what's lacking in EOS. Like, so the first couple check boxes are very simple. What's been lacking is resources and coordination. And the coordination and resources are already being put to work. The first grants went out last week. Eden's obviously been built. They were empowered. And you guys, Brandon and Chris, you guys are empowered, just as empowered. So everything's going to be happening. And like I said, EOS, it's almost, think of it like a business, like a decentralized business. And that's the approach to really snowball this thing. It's what's been lacking in EOS that all of these other ecosystems that we've seen emerge, they all have that. They have that parallelism in empowerment, grant programs, and just everyone kind of being incentivized to work towards the same common goal. But with EOS, there just hasn't been a unified vision or a common goal. And we'll start working towards that. We'll continue communicating that. And I've been biting my tongue. So I talk to a lot of people in DMs and stuff because I'm trying to be very careful. I love talking to everyone. I want to come back and talk to everyone every week, but there's just so much being done every single day. Literally, there is so much that needs to be done because we're a very new organization. We after the funding was secured August 25th, it's kind of like now it's go time, and we are a very new company. Had to register the trademarks, had to register like bank accounts, just basic stuff that you would have in a business before you even like showed your face publicly or pitched.
Oh man, it's a flipping mess trying to do any business in crypto when you're a company, because then you have to show that on paper in the real world that half of the time doesn't even understand what the hell you're doing, right? It's like, it's an absolute shitstorm, to be honest. Like once you get through that, but like you guys are a new company, but you're a company of old souls. I will say that, right? For sure. And I think that's the same thing with Eden. Like I have to shout out Dan, and I have to shout out you and Eve. Here's the thing, because essentially what's happened here is people have been, put in a position where they weren't able to do what they wanted to do. They got pissed off and they got tired of other people saying like, oh, you have to do this, and other people like not building shit. So they took it upon themselves to build something, right? Like Dan walked away from Block One and took a lot of flack for it to be able to like make the Eden dream come true. Eve walked away from EOS Nation to be able to like make that dream come true. You walked away from like one of the most successful podcasts that has ever existed in this ecosystem to be able to brand it and help that, right? And I think that that's really an important thing to understand is the people who are building in this ecosystem are like really unique people who have the ability to fail and fail and fail again. And I think eventually they're going to come out on top. And now what you have with this Eden, with all this funding, is other people who are able to enable other people. And when you get people enabling people who are enabling people, then the whole scenario switches, the whole game changes. So I'm sorry, I know you have to go, Brandon. I know you're on a short shoestring there. I don't want it to be my fault that you freeze to death in the winter because you didn't get those logs chopped. I know I got to get out and start preparing.
So the wood's not going to chop itself, people. So
thanks.
Between. Yeah.
But I also know that Chris Barnes is going to hang around and see who gets that freaking Dan Finney.
Yeah, well, I want that. Are we going to burn some Finneys or what?
Yeah, we're gonna do 3 more. We're gonna do that right now.
Let's burn it up, and I'll peace out after the burn.
Okay, sweet. Hopefully this first one burns. I don't know that the first one wasn't liking.
Sounds like we're talking about something else here.
Yeah.
Everyone giggling.
It's 4:20 somewhere in the world.
Yeah, I didn't even.
It actually is, because it's like, for me, it's 20 past midnight for me. So
there we go.
All right, let's go here.
Somebody in the chat was talking about how much they love all the green behind me. It looks like I'm in Eden, and I thought, love all the green. Yep, see?
It is still quite green there, man. Is it not fall? Where are you at?
It is fall, but I don't have any trees that turn like orange there's a little orange out there, but not like beautiful reds. It's all like oak trees and pine trees, southern Minnesota. So
Come on, come on, come on.
Fall is here for sure, but
Come on.
I love this little
Dan McManus.
little
Dan
giveaway.
McManus, please drop your EOS account in the comments. You get that first Finny that was burned.
They should get an extra bonus for having a new Chiha anime avatar. I like that. It's very good.
Right. Okay. Dan McManus, drop your EOS account in the thing. We'll do that. We'll do all three, and then we'll burn the last one, just so I don't have to keep. So this is for the Finny coin that hasn't been burned. We'll burn that next.
All right, let's go, let's go, let's go. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy.
Oh.
Oh, Elias.
Fuck Kirby.
All right.
I mean,
Elias has been.
People know you, so
Winner
you're-
chicken dinner. Let's go.
Right. You're probably But again, drop your EOS account. I mean, if people on the stream can verify.
are you giving away 4
Yeah.
things, Jimmy? You doing
Oh,
No,
Elias
no,
is
but the first person didn't respond, so we gave that away. And this is the last one. This is the big take home. I think this is for the Dan Larimer Finny. It's a 1 of 10. There were only 10 ever created.
Elias is real.
So yeah, chuck your rabbit foot in the salt shaker before you throw it over your left shoulder, or however that shit works, because like this is a big one, maybe the biggest
Let's
one that we've
go.
ever done on this show.
If I win this, I'm actually going to keep it. The other stuff I might have donated it onward. Not this one.
I thought you were gonna sell. I might have dumped it.
Yeah,
No way.
I don't.
Dun,
Carlos Eisenberg.
The Carlos Eisenberg principle.
So I think that's 3 distinct winners. I got to check my screenshots. No one won twice, right? Because
Correct.
Not taking double
No, you're
winners.
good.
No.
And so now what we'll do is we will go and we will burn that last Finny, which will be the second place winner.
To the fires.
And hopefully it works this time. If it doesn't, you're just going to get the coin. But yeah.
You know, Zach, when you were giving, before we started doing this, and you were talking about how everything's building up and you can't release it all at once. We need the momentum, and then all of a sudden there's going to be this big
Crescendo.
It made me think of like how a tsunami, which is like a bad thing, I suppose, but how in the middle of the ocean it's just this wave that you don't notice. But as it approaches the shore, this massive water starts to bunch up, and it becomes this giant tidal wave of water. Right? That's what
Everything is strategic. All right, just everything is strategic. Like the first round of recognition grants, for example, it's all of the internal EOS media companies, right? Because those are the ones best positioned to amplify all of the news coming up. Yeah. Then we have a history of weeks worth of news. Not that they weren't doing it before, but now it's like they got this little extra kick. So then whenever they start shaking things up externally, they dig in the EOS. Then you have you scratch the surface on the external medias, and when you want to dive in really deep, you go to the buy wires, the crypto writers, the EOS goes, and that's where you could really dive in. And like being a not-for-profit, I was just talking to you about this the other day, Chris. The not-for-profit in Canada, for example, it's a G7 country. This isn't like we're doing things above board in a G7 nation. It's not Switzerland. It's not some Caribbean island. It's not the Caymans. This is one of the most regulatory leaders, really, like the first country to approve like legal pot, gay marriage. The list goes on. And if we could turn Canada into a cryptocurrency blockchain company hub, where it's proven that there's a framework that we could work within, that you could be successful in, then future foundations, future blockchain companies might set up shop in Canada, because there's a lot of advantages to being established in a country like Canada. And obviously we're seeing what happens in the United States. The United States can't figure out what it wants to do. So I think Canada is a really good place to be. And the tsunami's coming, man. Like we're building up. And I'm really excited. Just there's so many irons in the fire right now that there's just things that take time. Like it's a brand new company. Like the funding was secured, but it wasn't guaranteed. So whenever you've already gone 3 years and there's no guarantee, like you can't invest in tens of thousands of dollars into things without even knowing if this thing's going to work. So as soon as the MSIG was approved, it's like, all right, let's go full speed.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was doing double duty. I've been helping with the foundation in the background like throughout the summer, and then when it happened, I was still with Liquid Apps, and I love Liquid Apps. I love the team. I built up a strong relationship. They're the reason I lasted this long. We outlasted everybody in EOS to make it here, and it's unfortunate that we lost a lot of good talent, but there's still some really good talent here. We are going to be the core, and I think for EOS to be successful, like, yeah, it'd be cool to get the gang back together and get the band back together and start playing music again together. But realistically, we all carry a lot of baggage, even us, myself included. Like, we live through the harder times.
Right.
For us to be successful, we'll see new community members coming in who carry no baggage. They just come here. They know this thing Pamella's here. This thing's Eden here. The EOS Foundation's here. This is awesome. And that's the only EOS that they know. And that's how we're going to push things forward. I mean, right now, a lot of the messaging is for you guys. It's for the EOS community. But when we're ready for the crescendo, like I said, there's certain things like we don't even have a website yet. We're working with a top branding agency to get this done, get the narrative, the messaging, the identity, the design, like masterful. And when we are ready, we will make noise. I mean, you guys have known me for a very long time. And Jimmy, everything EOS, I mean, it's not dead. Everything EOS basically turns into what is now the EOS Foundation. I've built up the subscriberships, the Twitters, the YouTubes, the Telegram channel's already kind of been switched over. So
sorry, I didn't mean to say it was dead.
It's because
I know what you did with it, and I totally agree why. Right? Like, I think that
it's on hold. Yeah, it's on hold, but it's not dead by any means. And when we're ready to flip the switch, everyone will know, and we'll be in a really good position because we're not starting from zero. It takes a lot of time. Like, you're running a YouTube channel right now. It's really hard to
right. I do this when I'm sleeping sometimes. I think like I'm sleeping.
It's a grind to build up a followership. It doesn't matter how, like, you could pay for advertising, you could market all you want, but it's hard to go from any YouTube from zero to several thousand. So like just starting with that is a huge benefit to the foundation. And like on Twitter, for example, you'll see that everything EOS Twitter roll over eventually once we have the branding in place and we're ready. Like externally, a lot of the people, the first time they hear about the foundation, unless they're following EOS, we're going to have a nice body of work behind us. And it'll help also because there's like five different Eden Twitters and there's like 5 different EOS Foundation Twitters because there are so many different versions of an EOS Foundation that just never worked. And I don't even know who runs these Twitters. So starting like with now known as everything EOS, the EOS Network Foundation Twitter, for example, starts with like 8,000 followers instead of 0, because if it started at 0, then all of these other ones I see, I've mistakenly tagged the wrong. I don't know which one's the official Eden on EOS, but I've seen other people tag an EOS Foundation Twitter that's not official, but it's just because we're in this weird gray limbo phase right now where Eve is basically the brand at the moment, but like I'm still behind the brand. Like it's our words together. Like when you read things, it's everyone. But it's a process. It's a multi-week process. As soon as the funding's secured, then you got to reach out to all of these potential contractors for PR, for branding, for big across multiple cultures too. You got to vet them. You got to have these intro calls with them. Then you have the follow-up calls. You bring in E, for example. Then you decide who are we going to use. Okay, then we select these companies, and then there's an onboarding and discovery process that they might not even be able to begin as soon as you make the deal happen. Any quality company is booked out. So it was a process to find companies that could get to work as on our timelines, which are insane because we need to move 1 million miles per hour. But that's where we're at right now. We've got all the contractors and agencies secured. We're going through onboarding, discovery, and that was after like vetting them, figuring out who we wanted, signing, paying them, and then waiting for them to be ready to meet us and start running. And right now we're running, but not everyone can see what's happening, but I see it every day. There's a lot happening, and I'm looking forward to being able to just speak freely with you guys about it more.
Zach, I just want to say, great job not saying soon at any point during that entire, like anything you said. You
It's
haven't had to
already
drop,
happening. It's
you haven't
already
had to drop the soon TM anywhere in there. It's all super exciting. I'm glad you're working on it. I'm glad the whether it's the old band or like the band that's forming from all the new blood. It's like a super group. We've got the super group together. So, guys, I gotta jump. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you next time.
No problem. Thank you, Brandon, and looking forward to the next time. Yeah, for sure. So.
Very well.
Yeah, I'm excited. But my favorite thing that you did with your everything EOS, like that's not true, because like when you were actually running it like on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, like I love those shows. That was it's funny because that was the way that I learned so much about EOS. But like of recent times, the best thing I thought that you did was you just said, okay, I'm busy, I can't do this. I'm going to open it up to the community, and whoever wants to use it can use it. And like, it was great, right? Like, I know Chris Barnes used it a little bit, so it was really cool to me. And I'm just really excited to see how this happens. And many of you might know, like Corey and I got our start as like, USIO Weekly. We did this weekly podcast, and we were like, we kind of branded it into what we do now, which is based a little bit more around our projects, but still like involves a lot of the people in the space and trying to bridge all of these different communities together. So it is going to be really exciting and really interesting to see, I think, what happens with all of this funding. I mean, honestly, like you just pretty much ensured that like my next year is going to be booked out, because we're going to need so many projects to come on and give us updates, right?
Remember in 2019 when it felt like there was so much going on that you couldn't keep up with it, and that's why you needed everything EOS? That's what we're building here, and I can't wait to see who the next everything EOS is, so that I could keep up with it, because that's the beautiful thing about Eden and things like that. And then Pomelo is that it puts eyes and ears everywhere, because there's no centralized business or person who can know everything. We're not oracles here. We don't see and hear everything. So that's what all of this allows. And I cannot wait until like these shows like this and the newsletters and the medias like the EOS Goes, the Crypto Writers, the Buywires, when those are just like must-haves, because otherwise you're going to get lost and not be able to keep up. And that was like my golden era was during that time. Like through the EOS hackathons all the way through B1 June was probably the golden era, because it's all about storytelling. That's what this is. It's the journey. Like, you could say what you want about Cardano and technology and what you think of Charles, but Charles is amazing at connecting to his audience. He talks to them every day almost, if you follow him on Twitter. And telling the story of the journey is the best part. And in life, I say this a lot, so I apologize if I've said this a million times, but you always have to have some in life, as is in crypto. It's always the most enjoyable when you have something to look forward to. It doesn't matter if it's a vacation, a wedding you're looking forward to, visiting an old friend. When you have something on your calendar, whether it's a hard date or not, but you could look forward to it, it makes it easier to wake up every day. It keeps you motivated every day, because you're working towards what this goal is, or these goals are, or this event. And I think what was lacking in the EOS community over the last year is we ran out of things to look forward to. And over like a year or two since B1 June, it was kind of like everything we were looking forward to, that we were expecting because we were told to expect it, kind of fizzled out or wasn't as great as we had anticipated. The follow through wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. And there's still so many gaps that are left to be filled. But what I really want to do is just keep constantly putting these things on the calendar of like, this is what we're looking forward to. These are the things we're looking forward to. And then just enjoying the journey of getting there, and always having the next thing lined up, so that once we get to that end goal of that particular track, there's like 5 other tracks that we're looking forward to. So we're building up to that. And it's something that we haven't had in a very long time within EOS. Optimism, hopium, the idea that the future is better than the present. And we haven't had that until the last few months. And that's, it's boiling. Like, we feel it because we're like the core of EOS right now, but everyone else will feel it soon enough if they're not feeling it already, because we're moving. Get on the train or step aside, because we're moving ahead with or without everyone. And I hope everyone comes along for the ride.
I think it's great, Zach, that, like you say, you're moving fast and there's so much to do, and it has already been done since late September when you guys kicked it off. But the fact you're being strategic and deliberate and very thoughtful, personally, I'd rather you don't disclose everything for all the reasons you mentioned. It allows you to pivot. It allows you to keep moving with this momentum and not get held up. And so I very much appreciate the strategy and the deliberateness with which you guys are acting.
Anything that creates distractions is exactly that. It's a distraction. Like, there's certain things that nobody's ever going to agree on. So the more we can keep focus away from that, and like I said, explaining why something changed, like it's just, we have limited capacity and team right now. We're growing as a team. There's a third member of core that will be introduced soon. He's from outside of, man, I'm going too far. This is why I shouldn't be on a live stream. But
how about, like, this is what used to happen when we were in the back of the bus in the country town in Canada. When people went too far, we would just ask them new questions. Sex with butt vegetables. My favorite response of all time was when our little buddy Johan looked at us and said, "Is a pumpkin a vegetable?" I don't know the answer to that, but I laughed for days and days and days. Right? Like, you know, it's just all about perspective, and it's all about you know.
It's an exciting time to be just in blockchain in general, but especially with EOS, because, man, like, there's just so much boiling underneath the surface. Like, we've been in this trend for so long that it's last week I was in Puerto Rico and went to Crypto Monday and talked to a lot of people. It was my first time traveling since going to see Dan at his speech in Capitol Hill in January 2020. This is my first time leaving my hometown. I went to Crypto Monday just to kind of talk to some people. I met up with Han from Node 1. He's been just traveling all over the US. I think he hung out with Chris the other day. So I told him I'd hang out. I didn't want him to come to Pittsburgh. There's nothing to do in Pittsburgh. So I told him, hey, man, whenever you're in doing something cool, I'll meet you there. So we went to Puerto Rico, Crypto Monday. There's like 200 people there, all just diehards. I haven't seen this many people in person and that are into crypto in so long. And talking to a lot of them, there's a lot of former EOS holders or people just that never even paid attention to EOS, and just kind of explaining to them like what's going on, man. The reactions are good. You might, like, EOS does have a reputation problem. We're working on it. We know about it. It's not like it's lost on us. We know what we're up against, but the best thing we could do is just keep putting out wins, more wins. Then if you want to talk about the past and anything that you didn't like about it, what are you doing? Look forward. Like, look at all this stuff we're doing. And that's what we're doing. It's what we've done. It's where we're going. And based on these reactions, I am just super bullish on our ability to shift sentiment and change the narrative. The narrative has already shifted. Like, if you look in the Telegram group, some people that you used to see kind of be bearish are now excited. And you're starting to see developers who maybe fizzled out of the EOS because they're trying to put food on their table. They're running a business. They've been focusing on other technologies, other EOS.io chains. A lot of them are starting to come back. It's got their attention. And I don't know. I'm just excited.
No, anyone that knows me knows that, like, I'm overtly critical, right? But honestly, like, I don't care what the price does. I really don't care. I'm more focused on whether this ecosystem pulls together and, like, builds something that's of value for the world. And, like, that's the only thing that I get annoyed about is, like, if the price goes to zero, I'm going to be pissed because there's so much potential that went down the drain with it. Right. But I couldn't care whether the price is $5, whether the price is $20, whether the price is $100. Right. Like, of course, it would be nice if it was $100, but that's not why I'm in this. Right. Like, Like I speculate on different things potentially, right?
Like,
But I'm in
Jamie?
this
Like what?
for-
What do you speculate on?
I mean, I speculate
just
on, but yeah, no, I whale into all the projects that we build because like we build shit that we want to whale into, right? Like, but like there's been a lot of projects that I've speculated on. Like there's been a lot of projects that I've took a gamble on, and there's been a lot of projects that I've won with. I mean, I think a really good example would be Checks, right? Like when Checks came out, they were nothing, and now they're building this whole ecosystem around stuff. And if you got in early, you're doing quite well. But then there's other projects. DAP is another really good example, right? Like that if you were an early supporter, you're still doing okay, right? But then there were other projects that, like, you know, they didn't get the support that they needed and they disappeared, or they went here and there and wither. But that to me is the saddest part. So what's most exciting about this funding is, like you said, the ability for developers who are doing mad shit to be able to put food on the table and keep the lights on. That's what's exciting, right? Like that's that rejuvenation that's really got me, you know, riled up again.
What's
right?
been lacking? What's been lacking. And as far as scaling the ecosystem, like I keep talking about working in parallel, that's what is 100% needed. Empower as many different individual groups and groups of groups for like working groups as possible, so that everyone's working in parallel towards a common goal. And a lot of that's being directed by funding being distributed by the foundation. Even at the maximum 2% inflation, if you work out the dollar value at today's price, like $80 to $100 million, you could scale that a lot further by, I don't know how to say this the right way, but you could, right now, the market cap is $4 billion, right? If it was $8 billion, for example, that's $4 billion in the hands and pockets of the entire ecosystem. That's another reason why all these other ecosystems are thriving, because it's not just the core teams or the founding teams or the software developing teams or their foundations. They've had these grant programs that like, one of the benefits of us is we have the ability of seeing everything that's already worked, and we could kind of leverage that experience of other groups, people's projects, and do it better. Like the technology, it's so funny whenever you read some of these Twitter threads and you get people like Kurt, for example. Kurt, remember Kurt from D-Mail? I can't brag it. He commented on a tweet, and it stood out because he said, like, yeah, I'm left EOS, never looked back, but EOS IO is amazing technology. How often have you seen that from someone technical who is like, yeah, it was just toxic, I had to get out of there and move to greener pastures, but the technology was awesome?
And I think he's still doing stuff with the technology on some of these side chains, right? And I think that's the problem for me. I don't know. I'm really glad to see you guys coming in and bringing this funding arm. And I don't mean to like sound like I'm pushing this aside. I'm not doing that at all. But that's like the problem for me, is like the outside ecosystem has no idea what differentiates the technology between like the technology from the actual ecosystem, because there was a time period there where the ecosystem in itself internally was so toxic, right? And it just, like, I think this is going to be, I mean, yeah, Eden's a good word for it. Let's put it that way. Because, like, you know, Eden is something else. It's a governance. But this is going to be like a whole refresh that, like, and we're going to get to a point where people probably know what Eden is, but they don't know what EOS is. But the world, or parts of the world, are running on EOS, right? Like, that's the be all and the end all of how blockchain technology can change the world. I mean, eventually there's going to be this interoperability between chains where you don't know whether you're buying, you know, something at the supermarket with Ethereum, or whether you're buying it with EOS, or whether you're running on like an EOS.io blockchain, or whether you're using Cardano to pick up your art. I mean, but 9 times out of 10, the technology is so good that it's probably going to be EOS, like once we get to that point, if we're still going. I hope that doesn't make sense. And I'm not trying to sound overly shilly, but it just doesn't make sense to me why people would use Ethereum with the gas fees the way they are. But it totally makes sense why people haven't adopted crypto, if that's still the mentality behind how blockchain works, right? Like,
I mean, even so, if you look at the other ecosystems out there, like, they've been running while we've been walking or standing still. And as
That's a
much
very valid
as
point.
we stagnated in certain ways, half-second blocks, Solana is the only other chain doing half-second blocks. Like Terra, Cosmos, Tendermint chains, they're all 6-second blocks. That's it's going to hold them back, and we're already like we're in a really good position even without major features coming out since EOSIO after 2.0. There's only been smaller features that have come out. Like there never was in EOS 3.0 where these big base layer interoperability features or things like that. But now there's the mechanisms in place to ensure that what we need is what gets built, and we know what we need. We see what everyone else has that we don't, and we could build it better. And that's right now with teams like Greymass getting the Eden funding, and then various working groups and recognition grants that could potentially help them. It's like they could scale their team. Like having multiple teams like that, there's very talented teams out there that have been building the whole time. They've just been less visible in EOS because the business to run your business, to stay alive, has been elsewhere. You got teams like EOSphere, EOS Dublin, EOS Amsterdam, EOS Nation, like these very talented teams that have just been working off basically block rewards on a couple different chains. Now they could add to that and be able to scale their teams, like being able to hire Greymass, 3 people. I learned that yesterday when Aaron was talking in the EOS Eden members channel. 3 developers on the Greymass team, and look at how much they've accomplished. What happens when their team is like 10 people and they're able to just build out all of these features we've been talking about and say, like I said earlier, someone should build this, someone should run that. Well, now there are these someones, and it really just there's a process of how to reach a consensus with the EOS community on what they want built. You propose it through Pomelo, you run through an Eden election. Then there's opportunities through the foundation for certain of core pillars. If you look at the State of EOS blog post from Eve a week or 2 ago, it gave a roadmap. Imagine that. We have a roadmap for EOS. It's very early and it's still subject to change, but we're not afraid. Like, yeah, we're not coming out and talking more than we need to yet, but we're sharing and more open and more transparent than anyone before us has ever been. And we're okay with putting things out early and not like waiting for perfection. Perfection might never happen. We're just trying to, I keep saying it, run as fast as we can and with as many of our friends as we can. And when I say our friends, I mean the entire EOS community. Everyone who's here today, like, you have a huge advantage. If you have a valuable skill set, like anyone that was on this call earlier, you could probably DM any one of these people and they will respond to you. And if they cannot help you, they will tell you who could help you. And Chris, you campaigned on helping people with their Pomelo proposals, for example. Like, that's awesome. And I'm sure there's going to be more people that do something similar, whether as a delegate or just because they want to grow the ecosystem. Like, there was never a path towards moving forward and progressing. So it just became a toxic cesspool of everyone kind of complaining. And I get it. It sucked for a while. But we're here, we made it. And now we're finally able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's exciting, it's rejuvenating. And like I said, for the first time in at least a year, maybe probably longer, 2 years, we have stuff to look forward to. Lots of stuff to look forward to. I'm looking forward to all of Greymass's work. I'm looking forward to the EOS support team. I'm looking forward to seeing what the EOS Bees do. Uplift Nation, like there's so many things to look forward to that I want to see happen. I want to see what gets proposed in Pomelo, for example. I want to see Pomelo in general. I want to see these working groups that are forming to deliver on their milestones, and then we could present it to the community and talk about it. And man, I just can't wait.
Yeah, I always wonder how many of those people who used to complain back in the day actually held EOS. Like, how many of them were fudders? And I always wonder the ones that actually did hold EOS, like what chain they're complaining about now. because like there seems to be this like kind of pattern where speculators or people are going in and they're like asking about making money. And I think like if yeah, I mean, we can say that it's all high and mighty, that people don't need money, but the majority of people who got into blockchain even early, back in Satoshi's day, they didn't think that Bitcoin was going to go to 50 grand, right? Like they wanted to use it for video gaming and all of these other like really interesting things. Like there's no way they thought it was going to go to 50 grand. So it's an insane time that we live in. And like, I don't know when this stuff calms down, but I think we've got another few months. And like, I got in at the hype of like 2017. That's kind of when I got in, just before the hype. Like it was kind of hyped out, but like not quite. And then like I rode it all the way down, and still doing that, riding it all the way down and then coming back up with some of these projects. It's like you're still way ahead. So like when that hype hits, it's gonna be like nuts, right? Like I'm excited for the
journey,
right? Yeah, totally.
And you see in like DeFi, for example, all of these chains announcing these like multi-$100 funds, and they don't actually say over what period of time, so it's a bit shallow. But the other thing you see is all of these like liquidity mining programs. Like Matic was very successful with it. Avalanche launched a pretty significant sized liquidity mining program, and then we saw it on EOS. So last year, when, for example, DeFi Box and DFS first launched, they had these really good liquidity mining programs that like exploded to TVL, but you can't really sustain all of that because eventually you're burning capital to be able to do stuff like that. When we're going to be coming to a crescendo around this, can't time any of this, but a lot of the projects that are blowing and burning through a bunch of tokens right now to attract that liquidity, that's going to kind of be not as hard and fast as it is today, or it was a month or two ago, when we're actually in a better position to be able to do that and to bring people to EOS. And it's also nice to see projects like Finny, for example, which we just gave the coins away earlier, a project like that has found success outside of EOS. They found success on Wax. They found success on Ethereum. They're finding success on Luna, but they're still EOS at heart. Kenny from Cryptowriter will never not wear his EOS hat, no matter how many other ecosystems he's in. And having those connections to those other ecosystems, like, it gives us a foot in the door with EOS. So think of it like whenever you want to get an intro to someone, it's always easier to get that intro whenever you're like a friend of a friend and someone could like introduce you to those people, as opposed to approaching each other cold. That's what we have a lot of projects in EOS right now are projects that were kind of forced to go multi-chain, but multi-chain's the future anyway. And it kind of gives us a leg up. So I'm excited to be able to kind of piggyback on that. Like, not even, I don't want to say the S word. I'm not going to say
yeah,
it.
but that's a really interesting point. Find me a top-notch developer that says that EOS tech is shit. You can't find one, right? Like, none of these top-notch developers on any of these other chains are ever going to criticize EOS for being a shit technology. And that's what's exciting for me, actually, is because like they all know, right? And so like when you start bridging things, like, I mean, Binance Chain is a really good one to look at. Like, they came out of the gates, they went absolutely mad, right? But like they're still willing to like create connections with projects in the EOS space. I'm not saying that we're creating connections with Binance, but maybe I am. But there's these really cool cross like synergies between all of these chains, and in the end, like, the technology will stand on its own merits. It will stand on its own laurels. Well, and I think what you guys are doing to put these projects out there and put them on the front lines, in a sense, where people can see what they're capable of. Because what we have a community of developers who have been working their asses off with zero funding and coming up with great freaking projects, right? And so when we throw a little bit of funding behind them, it's going to be really interesting to see how they take off, whether it be through Eden, whether it be through the foundation, whether it be through like all of these things.
Or be through a sustainable business model. That's kind of the dream here, is if you could offer the seed capital through all of these different means we've discussed today. The most risky time for a business to invest in a business is during its seed stage. That's where EOS VC failed, was it was looking at the established post-revenue businesses that had equity. But what EOS and most blockchain technology is lacking, especially on EOS, is at that early seed stage. Get them up, get them mature from think of an entrepreneur whenever they first come up with their business model or their idea. They go through this period where they iterate. They're typically working a full-time job. And for them to actually take that leap from wearing multiple hats to going all in on whatever it is their business is, if we could eventually get EOS in a position where we could kind of nurture and empower those type of people at the seed level to get them to a point where they could invest enough to get a proof of concept and a very strong pitch deck together so that they can go out there and then bring in that external capital. We just saw Yup. I love Yup. It's one of my favorite EOS projects. Worked with them for a very long time with Liquid Apps, and they use that network technology and EOS, and great team. These Columbia, they're spun out of a Columbia University student project. They met there, and they just closed $3.5 million of funding from A16Z. That's what I want to see in EOS. I want to see these projects that got their start from Pomelo, Eden, or from a grant from the foundation. They get from that early, pre-seed stage or seed stage, and this little bit of funding, tens of thousands of dollars is all it really takes, sometimes a little bit more, but it doesn't take millions of dollars to do this. You just need to experiment, be willing to take losses, and take strategic bets. And we never had the ability to take strategic bets before. It's
going to change the game, and the fact that it's going to bring in some new developers, some of these developers back, because to build out these MVPs, which is what you're saying, Zach, we need to get a bunch of wicked idea MVPs built from seed funding, which is the hardest part to get, and then you take that to the actual investors and you build it out huge. Just a few of those starting to pop in, and then more in that tsunami of MVPs getting built, seed funding. It's gonna just build on itself, because that's a narrative that's hard to fight. And then these developers come back, these tiger teams who can help build out these MVPs. It's pretty awesome that this is all coming together like it is.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. And thanks, guys, for joining us and hanging out for the Finny stuff. I'm going to send out the rewards tomorrow because I took screenshots of everyone's addresses that confirmed. But I'm just going to watch the video back tomorrow and make sure that the right Finny goes to the right person. And I'm going to have to take some time to do that live because I don't want to send the wrong one to the wrong person. So that's the excuse behind that. But yeah, I really enjoyed having you guys on, as always. Please come back onto a roundtable or come and join me and Corey just for some good times over in Uplifter land. Definitely excited for the future. I'm a little bit distracted right now because I'm pressing a button to buy Blue DAC tokens over on Nifty Block, which basically we're going to try to strap rockets to liquidity pools of every project on Wax for now. But it's EOS.io technology, so there's a pretty good chance that we'll be in other places as well, which is really interesting.
Hey, that's another thing that needs to change and will change. EOS is the mothership of EOS.io. Everyone fighting against each other. No. EOS, look at EVM and the network effect it has. No one fights Ethereum. Matic doesn't fight Ethereum. Binance Chain doesn't fight Ethereum. They're all EVM. EOS.io is the equivalent of that. And for EOS to be successful, all of these EOS.io chains also need to be successful. And Pomelo is public goods. Public goods benefit all EOS.io chains. There's a lot of features. I saw Luke Stokes in Puerto Rico, and I was just asking, hey, what's going on with FIO, man? Where are the gaps, and what are you guys lacking that could be built in a way that benefits all EOS.io chains? And that's something that Pomelo, even Eden, will be able to do. Is these features, this is open source code. It's meant to benefit everybody. And that's another thing I'm looking forward to, is kind of creating that vibe, which is a totally different vibe than the old one, where it was just kind of a lot of fighting, man. Tribalism is.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point. One of my favorite people in the space is actually Luke. He's overtly critical, but he's not to the point of of Kurt, and I like Kurt actually as well.
No, Kurt's awesome too.
But he's like still even Kurt is he'll give credit where credit is due. So I don't want to name them, but there's a few chains that just have a chip on their shoulder, and they just keep draining that in. And like, you know, Luke's been doing things with FIO that like are going to enable the whole blockchain ecosystem based off of EOS.IO technology, which is going to be huge, right? Like what those guys are working on, once they figure it out, of course, there's technological, you know, stumbles, and it's not an easy thing to do, right? But like, wasn't it like Dan who was basically told by Satoshi, if like you don't understand me, then this isn't the place for you? And like how many years later does he basically launch the, you know, one of the fastest, best blockchains in the world, right? And so like I think that there are going to be situations always where there's going to be these outliers. But I mean, me personally, I like to try to support all EOS.IO chains, but if you figure out which wallets are mine, you'll easily see that I support the ones that aren't negative. Let's just put it that way. I support them a little bit more because I think that's what needs to be done.
I just want to say one thing. Speaking of support, sort of to me, this is all still a bit surreal. In 5 months, I've gone from just being an uber fan of EOS and you, Zach, and Jimmy. I've seen, but I mean, Zach, honestly, man, I just want to just thank you here on the air that I absolutely, genuinely appreciate everything you've done for EOS, and now what you're continuing to do. I think you should, you know, you deserve all the credit in the world, man. You're doing God's work here with Eve, and I'm just super grateful for this opportunity just to be on this call and like listening to this. It's like I would be watching this for sure, right?
Yeah, but
right.
look at what
I used to get pissed off, Zach. Honestly, like I used to get really fucking pissed off at you because I would get in my car, I would drive to work, and I'm on the opposite side of the world. I would get in my car and I would drive to work, and I would open up my YouTube, and there wasn't an Everything EOS video. And I'm like, fuck, God damn it, Zach, why are you taking the day off? I need my information. Like, this is the only time I really ever got pissed off at you. So I'm kind of with Chris on this sentiment. Like, the fact that I'm like here sharing this stream now, I mean, it's really interesting. The lessons that you taught me and the things that I learned from you, like, yeah, thank you for all of those back in the day.
I look forward to having the time to ramp it up again. So before, it wasn't even possible to ramp it up, even if I did have the time, because there just wasn't enough to talk about. I wasn't bullish. I've always been honest with everyone, and I don't want to be fake. I don't want to lead people down the wrong path. I've always been genuine. And for a long time, I didn't, with the state of EOS as it was for almost a year, it was kind of like, I did videos a lot more rare only when I was excited about something. And that's when I'm at my best, is whenever I'm talking about something I'm passionate about, doing something I'm passionate about. Early, like Brock used to talk about you're finding your ikigai, like back then. He probably still talks about it, but finding your ikigai. And I think that's kind of what we're all finding here within EOS, and what I've definitely like the position I've landed myself in from like outlasting everyone and putting in the sweat equity. Like I'm at my ikigai right now. I was at my ikigai in 2019 when I had the CipherCast sponsorship, and Rob and I that's what we did, man. We carried that flag for EOS, and now I'm in an even better position to carry the flag of EOS. And I should have, damn, now I got to come back, Jimmy. I got to do my thankful Minecraft gratitude on Rob Finch, man.
Yeah,
Rob's doing great, everybody. I'm still really good friends with Rob. He's still doing blankas, still doing crypto. It's just, he's not in EOS, and he's not a public figure in the ecosystems he does like, because no one sets out to do this. I didn't set out to do it. Chris probably never set out to be doing YouTube videos. Jimmy, I don't know if you ever, like 2 years ago, if you saw yourself doing regular YouTube videos.
Man, I'm a writer. Like I'm like that guy that we explained on the beginning of the screen, and it was like through MBlue that he's just like, okay, like this guy Corey, he wants to interview you on Chirpcast, which is actually, you know, one of Kurt's things, ironically enough.
That's where Corey, I forgot that. Okay,
right?
Sorry. I forgot about that.
So he wanted to interview me about what we were doing with Uplift Nation, and we hung out, and it was just like, this is great. And Corey's like, do you want to do this for, like, let's just do it once a week. And I was like, okay, fuck it, we'll do it once a week. And then like I think around Christmas rolled around last year, or a couple of years ago, and he was like, hey, we're in a bull market, let's do this every day. And I was like, man, like
That's
kind of
insane.
busy, right? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe like we just do it like one or 2 days extra and we see how that goes. And he's like, look, man, he's like, this is what I want to do. Either we keep it once a week or we just go all in and we'll do it once a day. We did it once a day for like, I don't know, like
I
a few
remember that.
weeks. And then we were just like, God damn it, we need weekends off. Like, there's no
You're like a
possible-
TV channel,
right? Yeah.
regular
it was good.
programming.
So, but yeah, I wasn't planning on doing this, and I'm really happy that like people like us. I'm really happy that we get the opportunities to come on here with the Roundtable and meet people like you, right? I'm really happy that like, you know, I work for another team, Gener EOS, which is another block producer in the space, and you know they were able to introduce me to Dan and make this whole show happen, and I'm really excited about like all that's happening. So yeah, and Zach, when you're ready, like please come back anytime. Come back here, come back on our channel. Well, I would love to do a spotlight with you on Gener EOS as well. Like I'm just really stoked for the space. I'm talking really fast right now because I feel like the faster I talk, the quicker I'm going to get out here. And it's nothing against you guys, but like you guys can stay here for the next like 3.5 minutes if you want and chat. But I really got to go to the washroom. So
I think we all have got stuff to do. I just love talking to you guys.
Yeah. But thank you for joining us, everyone. I'll send out your rewards tomorrow. And please come back for the next roundtable. We don't know what it is. I might just take a week off because this was so freaking epic. But yeah, we'll deal with that next week. So you guys all have a wonderful day. And again, Zach, thank you for the insights. Chris, thanks for being here. And all of your work with Eden and the things that you've done to progress it. And of course, our guest before. That's all.
Go EOS.
Wicked.
Go EOS. On 3. 1, 2, 3.